Speed and movement are a constant in our daily lives. Our eyes continuously process and take in movements through our vision. However, with still photography, we tend to capture moments in time with each image made. Sometimes, these moments in time are very short and completely freeze the image, and other times they are longer and the movement is captured. How does the camera capture movement so differently? The camera does this by using its shutter, which controls how long it takes to record an image. When you take a photo, the shutter opens, letting light through to the camera's image sensor and allows it to form an image. The duration that the shutter stays open is called shutter speed. To make this concept very easy to understand, think of shutter speed as the time taken for a battery to be charged using solar power. The higher the intensity of sunlight, the shorter the charging time. The lower the intensity of sunlight, the longer the charging time. That is exactly how the concept of shutter speed works. When there is plenty of light, a shorter shutter speed is needed. When there is less light, a longer shutter speed is needed. Shutter speeds can range from 1/8,000th of a second through to many seconds, minutes, or even hours. Most commonly, we use shutter speeds ranging from 1/60th of a second to about 1/1000th of a second. These are fast shutter speeds in green, and slow shutter speeds in orange. Let's see how different shutter speeds can affect an image. This waterfall offers a great setting for this test. We can create various effects or perceptions of speed with different shutter speeds. Let's begin with 1/30th of a second. Now let's increase the speed to 1/1000th of a second. As you can see, the higher the shutter speed, the more frozen the water movement is. Let's bring the shutter speed down, push the limits, and shoot for a full 1 second. The water movement is becoming smoother and less defined. As we decrease the shutter speed, more water movement is recorded. Fast shutter speeds freeze movement. Slow shutter speeds blur movement. However, each technique tells the story of speed in its own way. Fast shutter speeds are used when we want to capture movement with sharp details, like in this image. Here, the shutter speed was 1/1000th of a second. When we want a sense of movement and speed, a slow shutter speed is used and captures a longer slice of time. Notice how different shutter speeds convey a different sense of speed and movement. Let's get adventurous and try to capture both sharpness and blur in a single image. We will use a technique called panning. As the scooter moves along the forest road, let's try and capture its movement in two ways. Firstly, we'll keep the camera static, let the scooter cross into our view, and take the photo when it reaches the middle. Next, let's try panning by using the camera to track the scooter. In our first image, our scene is sharp except for the scooter, which was crossing our field of view when the shutter was open. Our second image, the scooter is sharp, while the rest of the scene is blurred. By tracking the scooter, it is registered sharply while the background becomes blurred. However, you should be careful when using slow shutter speeds. Any involuntary handshakes can cause movement blur like we see here. To help counteract this problem, the Alpha system features a built-in stabilizing mechanism called Steady Shot. But even with Steady Shot, a solid support such as a tripod is needed at speeds of 1/15th of a second and slower. Long exposures can create intriguing images that we cannot see with the naked eye. Let's take a look at a few examples of long exposure images. This is what the crashing waves look like to the human eye. But when exposed for over a minute, they can look silky smooth. Star trails are another great example of using shutter speed creatively. With extended shutter speeds, such as this shot of 60 minutes, we can create trails across the sky from what would normally appear as single dots of light. We have discovered many new things today, so let's have a quick recap of what we have learned. Capturing speed and movement, how shutter speeds affect the image, when to use fast and slow shutter speeds, how to use shutter speed creatively, slow shutter and handshakes, and experimenting with long shutter speeds. Now that you're familiar with shutter speed, make sure you check out the other tutorials in the series and see how else you can take creative control of your camera.